Beneath the ancient walls of the Moscow Kremlin lies one of Russia's greatest archaeological mysteries. Modern research has uncovered an entire underground world, a network of tunnels, halls, and structures whose age and purpose baffle scientists. What do these mysterious underground passages hide? Who built this grandiose underground complex 8 centuries ago? And why? Today, we embark on a journey through the secret underground passages of the Kremlin, where every discovery made by archaeologists rewrites history. Get ready to learn the truth about what has really been found in the depths of the Russian capital. If you are fascinated by this incredible story of the Kremlin's underground world, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Even more amazing discoveries by Russian archaeologists await us. Now, let's discuss in the comments. Do you think ancient craftsmen could really have possessed technologies that were ahead of their time? Share your theories about who created these mysterious underground passages and why. In the spring of 2019, a team of archaeologists working on Cathedral Square in the Moscow Kremlin stumbled upon something completely unexpected. Under a layer of earth several meters thick, they found the entrance to an underground chamber, the existence of which had not been mentioned in any historical document. The head of the expedition, Mikhail Vasilyevich Sedov, could not hide his surprise when the beam of his flashlight illuminated the stone arches disappearing into the darkness. Initial investigations showed that the structure was not just a cellar or basement, but part of an extensive system of underground passages. The walls were made of white stone using a special technique characteristic of ancient Russian architecture. Archaeologists discovered that the room had a complex layout with several levels connected by stone staircases. The researchers' attention was drawn to strange symbols on the walls. Carved into the stone, the symbols could not be deciphered at first glance. Some of them resembled ancient Russian graffiti, while others looked more like builders' marks or secret symbols. The age of these images will have to be determined using modern dating methods. In the eastern part of the room, archaeologists discovered a buried passageway. Careful clearing revealed that behind the rubble was another room, larger than the initial finds. It became clear that there was a whole network of underground structures beneath the Kremlin, the scale of which had yet to be assessed. The discovery caused a stir in the scientific community. Leading Russian historians and archaeologists flocked to Moscow to personally examine the discovered underground passages. Each of them expressed their own assumptions about the purpose and age of the structures, but no consensus was reached. Some saw the finds as the remains of ancient princely chambers, while others suggested that they were parts of defensive structures. Official representatives of the Moscow Kremlin announced the need for a thorough study of the finds with the involvement of the country's best specialists. It was decided to create a special archaeological commission to coordinate all work on the investigation of the underground structures. Academician Andrei Nikolaevich Kirpishnikov, a renowned expert on ancient Russian architecture, was appointed chairman of the commission. The first weeks of work showed that traditional archaeological excavation methods were not suitable for investigating the Kremlin's underground structures. It was necessary to develop new approaches that took into account the peculiarities of working in a confined space and the proximity to existing government buildings. The team of engineers adapted special equipment to work in conditions of limited visibility and high humidity. Within a month, it became clear that the discovered underground passages were only a small part of a huge underground system. A georadar survey of the Kremlin grounds revealed multiple voids and structures at depths of 3 to 15 meters. The picture that began to emerge was astonishing even to experienced researchers. The investigation of the Kremlin's underground structures required the use of the most advanced archaeological methods. Traditional excavation techniques, based on the layer-by-layer study of cultural deposits, needed to be seriously adapted to the conditions of working in confined underground spaces. A team of specialists led by Professor Elena Armarchuk developed a unique methodology for researching underground archaeological sites. The first stage of the work was three-dimensional laser scanning of all accessible rooms. Modern LiDAR devices made it possible to create an accurate digital model of the underground structures with millimeter precision. The data obtained formed the basis for a virtual reconstruction, which helped archaeologists understand the general layout and interconnection of the various parts of the complex. Particular attention was paid to stratigraphic analysis. In underground conditions, conventional methods for determining the sequence of cultural layers had to be modified. Archaeologists used microstratigraphy, studying the finest layers of soil and building materials under an electron microscope. This method made it possible to identify traces of different periods of construction and reconstruction. Radiocarbon dating of organic remains found in the underground passages was carried out in the laboratories of the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Samples of wood, charcoal, and organic inclusions in the solution helped establish the time frame for the existence of various parts of the complex. The results showed that the oldest structures can be dated to the 11th to 12th centuries. Geophysical research methods included ground-penetrating radar, magnetometry, and electrical tomography. These technologies made it possible to detect hidden cavities, buried passages, and changes in the soil structure indicating the presence of archaeological objects. Ground-penetrating radar revealed several large rooms that archaeologists have not yet been able to physically access. Petrographic examination of stone blocks and mortar was used to study construction techniques. Analysis of the mineral composition made it possible to determine the origin of the building materials and compare them with known quarries of that time. It turned out that the white stone was quarried in the Moscow region, and the lime mortar had a special composition characteristic of ancient Russian construction. Digital photogrammetry was used to create detailed three-dimensional models of individual architectural elements and artifacts. This technology made it possible to capture the smallest details of stone carvings, tool marks, and other important features that could have been lost during traditional recording. The resulting models became the basis for virtual reconstructions. Pollen and spore analysis from cultural layers helped to restore the natural conditions during the construction and use of the underground structures. Research has shown that in ancient times, the climate in the region was somewhat different, which could have influenced the choice of construction solutions and the functional purpose of the underground chambers. An interdisciplinary approach brought together archaeologists, historians, architects, geologists, and other specialists. Each find was examined from different angles, which allowed for a more complete picture to emerge. Regular scientific seminars facilitated the exchange of ideas and the development of common approaches to interpreting the materials discovered. The deepest archaeological layers in the Kremlin's underground chambers revealed an amazing picture of the earliest period of Moscow's history to researchers. At a depth of 8 to 10 meters below the modern surface, archaeologists discovered the remains of wooden structures dating back to the 10th to 11th centuries. These finds forced a rethinking of established ideas about the time of the city's founding. The oldest wooden structures were the remains of log structures made of oak and pine. Dendrochronological analysis showed that the trees were felled between 980 and 1010. The preservation of the wood was explained by the special conditions of its location in water-saturated clay layers, which created an anaerobic environment. Among the most ancient finds, fragments of pottery made on a potter's wheel were of particular interest. The shape and ornamentation of the vessels indicated a connection with the Byzantine cultural tradition, confirming the existence of trade contacts in the earliest period. Some shards bore scratched marks, possibly the marks of craftsmen or owners. Metal objects from the oldest layers included iron knives, arrowheads, and fragments of jewelry. The technology used to make these items testified to a high level of blacksmithing. Of particular interest were silver pendants with images in the Scandinavian style, indicating the presence of a Varangian element among the population. Organic remains from the oldest cultural layers included grains of various cereal crops, fruit pits, and fragments of fabrics. Paleobotanical analysis showed that wheat, rye, barley, and oats played an important role in the economy of the ancient inhabitants. The discovery of flax seeds indicated the development of textile production in the early period. The most mysterious finds were stone blocks discovered at the base of ancient wooden structures. These massive limestone slabs were processed using complex technical techniques and had grooves for connecting them to each other. Their purpose remains unclear, but the quality of the workmanship indicates the high skill of the ancient builders. Stratigraphic analysis of the oldest layers revealed traces of several large fires, separated by periods of peaceful life. Layers of coal and ash alternated with cultural deposits containing household finds. This picture is typical of ancient Russian cities, which repeatedly suffered from fire and were rebuilt. Burial finds from the oldest layers include several graves made according to pagan corpse burial rites. The cremated remains were placed in clay urns and accompanied by decorations and household items. These burials date back to the period before the adoption of Christianity and are of exceptional value for the study of pre-Christian beliefs. Analysis of pollen and seeds from the oldest layers has made it possible to reconstruct the natural environment of that time. The surroundings of the future Kremlin were a forest steppe landscape dominated by oak forests. The climate was slightly warmer than today, which was conducive to the development of agriculture. The Moscow River Valley was home to extensive floodplains used for grazing livestock. The study of the construction techniques used in the erection of the Kremlin's underground structures has revealed to researchers the amazing skill of ancient Russian architects. Analysis of the masonry has shown the use of several different techniques, indicating the participation of craftsmen from different schools and traditions in the construction. The most ancient parts of the complex demonstrate the influence of the Byzantine architectural tradition. The main building material was white limestone quarried in the Moscow region. Petrographic analysis showed that the stone came from several different deposits, which indicates the scale of the construction project. The quality of the blocks varied from rough-hewn to carefully fitted with millimeter precision. Of particular interest is the lime mortar used to bind the stone blocks. Its composition included not only lime and sand, but also various organic additives. Analysis revealed the presence of egg white, cottage cheese, and even animal blood. These components gave the mortar special strength and water resistance, which was critical for underground structures. The drainage system is impressive in its sophistication and technical perfection. Ancient builders created a complex network of drainage channels that carried groundwater away from the foundations. The channels were lined with ceramic pipes, and equipped with sedimentation tanks for water purification. Some elements of this system are still functioning today. The technical solutions used to create the vaulted ceilings of large spans remain a mystery. Engineering calculations show that some of the vaults required wooden formwork of complex shapes. However, no traces of such structures have been found, suggesting the use of construction techniques unknown to us. The ventilation system of the underground chambers consisted of a network of vertical and horizontal channels that ensured air circulation. The entrance openings were carefully camouflaged, and the internal channels had a complex configuration that prevented rainwater from entering. The system was designed to serve a large number of people. The masonry of the walls indicates the use of special lifting mechanisms to transport heavy stone blocks. Some elements weighed up to several tons, and moving them underground was a serious technical challenge. Traces of fastening devices, possibly used to lift the stones, have been preserved on the walls. The acoustic properties of some rooms suggest that sound characteristics were taken into account in their design. The shape of the arches and the placement of the niches create a special acoustic effect that amplifies and directs sound. This may indicate that the rooms were used for ceremonies or meetings where speech clarity was important. The lighting system of the underground structures was based on the use of torches and oil lamps. Special niches for installing lighting fixtures have been preserved in the walls, and traces of soot from their use are visible on the ceilings. The layout of the rooms took into account the location of light sources to ensure uniform illumination. Construction marks on the stone blocks represent a system of signs that helped craftsmen to correctly position structural elements. These symbols were made with various tools and may indicate the authorship of individual craftsmen or teams. Deciphering these signs could shed light on the organization of the construction process. The network of tunnels discovered under the Moscow Kremlin is a complex system of underground communications, striking in its scale and engineering perfection. The total length of the passages explored to date is more than 2 kilometers, but georadar surveys indicate the existence of unexplored areas. The layout of the system indicates that it was created according to a single plan. The main tunnels are about 2.5 meters high and up to 2 meters wide, which allowed people to move freely even in armor. The walls are lined with carefully fitted stone blocks, and the vaults are constructed using a technique characteristic of Byzantine architecture. The floor in many areas is covered with stone slabs, which ensured dryness and ease of movement. Branches from the main passages lead to various underground rooms and are more modest in size. These secondary tunnels, about 1.5 meters high, required movement in a semi-crouching position, which was probably dictated by considerations of secrecy. Some of them end in dead ends, the purpose of which remains a mystery. The ventilation system of the tunnels is based on the principle of natural air draft. Vertical shafts, camouflaged on the surface, provided fresh air, while horizontal channels created circulation. In some places, archaeologists have found the remains of wooden shutters that allowed air flows to be regulated. The drainage system of the tunnels includes gutters for water drainage, laid along the walls at floor level. These channels are connected to larger collectors that carry water outside the complex. The quality of the drainage structures indicates that the ancient builders had a deep understanding of hydraulic engineering principles. The most intriguing features are the hidden entrances to the tunnels discovered in various parts of the Kremlin. Some of them are rotating stone slabs set in motion by a system of counterweights. Others were disguised as ordinary stair steps or architectural decorations. The opening mechanisms were ingenious and reliable. The tunnels were lit by torch niches and oil lamps located every 10 to 15 meters. In some sections, traces of special reflective surfaces have been preserved, which amplified and directed the light. The system was designed for economical use of combustible materials while providing sufficient lighting. The strategic importance of the underground passages is confirmed by their connection to key objects in the Kremlin. The tunnels connected the main towers of the fortress, the residences of the rulers, and church buildings. This layout ensured secret movement during sieges or other emergencies. Some passages led outside the Kremlin walls. Archaeological finds in the tunnels include items from various historical periods, from ancient Rus to Roman times. This testifies to the long-term use of the underground system. Of particular interest are military finds, arrowheads, fragments of armor and cold weapons, indicating the defensive purpose of some sections. The current condition of the tunnels varies depending on geological conditions and the intensity of use in the past. Some sections have been preserved in their original form, while others have partially collapsed or been filled with soil. An engineering assessment has shown that most of the structures can be safely explored with the necessary precautions. The collection of artifacts extracted from the Kremlin's underground passages represents a unique chronological sequence spanning more than 8 centuries of Russian history. Each item found is a witness to a particular era and helps archaeologists reconstruct the picture of life and everyday life of the inhabitants of the ancient fortress. Many of the finds are unique in museum collections. The oldest artifacts date back to the 11th–12th centuries and include everyday items used by the first inhabitants of the Kremlin. Of particular interest are fragments of glass bracelets made in Byzantine workshops. These decorations testify to the trade links between ancient Moscow and Constantinople and indicate the high social status of their owners. Ceramic tableware is represented by examples from various periods and manufacturing technologies. The earliest examples were made on a potter's wheel and decorated with geometric patterns. Later finds demonstrate the influence of Golden Horde traditions, while items from the 15th to 16th centuries reflect the formation of the Moscow School of Ceramics. Metalwork includes weapons, craftsmen's tools, and jewelry. Particularly valuable are finds of armor elements from the 13th to 14th centuries, including fragments of chainmail and plate armor. The quality of the metalwork testifies to the high skill of ancient Russian gunsmiths and their familiarity with the advanced technologies of the time. Silver hryvnias and fragments thereof, which were used as a means of payment in the pre-Mongol period, occupy a special place among the numismatic finds. 14th century Golden Horde coins and the first Moscow denarii from the time of Dmitry Donskoy have also been discovered. These finds allow us to trace the evolution of monetary circulation in medieval Russia. Religious artifacts are represented by various types of pectoral crosses, encolpions, and fragments of church utensils. Some crosses are made of gold and decorated with enamel, indicating that they belong to members of the highest nobility. The finds testify to the deep penetration of Christianity into the lives of the Kremlin's inhabitants as early as the early Muscovite period. Imported items include fragments of 14th to 15th century Chinese porcelain, Venetian glassware, and samples of Western European fabrics. These finds demonstrate the breadth of the Moscow Principality's trade links and its integration into international trade networks. Fragments of silk fabrics with gold threads are particularly interesting. Craft tools and implements provide insight into the development of various types of production in medieval Moscow. Blacksmiths' tongs, jewelry tools, pottery implements, and leatherworking tools have been found. Some of the items found, demonstrate a high level of specialization and technical sophistication. Organic materials have been preserved thanks to the special conditions in the underground chambers. Fragments of wooden objects, leather shoes, textile elements, and even food remains have been found. These finds provide a unique opportunity to study the material culture of the Middle Ages in minute detail. The remains of birch bark letters with fragments of text are especially valuable. Mysterious objects of unknown purpose make up a special group of finds. Among them are bronze items of complex shape, possibly parts of mechanisms, stone blocks with unusual holes, and metal plates with incomprehensible symbols. Deciphering the purpose of these artifacts could open new pages in the history of medieval technology and everyday life. The architectural layout of the Kremlin's underground structures raises many questions for researchers, to which there are no clear answers yet. The general layout of the complex does not follow any obvious logic and includes elements whose purpose remains a mystery. It seems that different parts of the system were built at different times and for different purposes, but were then combined into a single whole. The central part of the complex is a large hall of irregular shape with high arches, from which corridors and passageways lead in different directions. The dimensions of this room, 20 by 30 meters with a height of up to 8 meters, indicate its special significance. The acoustic properties of the hall suggest that it may have been used for meetings or ceremonies. A strange feature of the layout is the presence of several dead-end corridors that end in blank walls. These passages are constructed with the same care as the main tunnels, but their purpose is unclear. Perhaps they were created as false passages to mislead potential enemies, or served some special purpose. The underground complex has at least 3 levels connected by stone staircases and sloping passages. The top level is 3 to 4 meters below the surface, the middle level is 6 to 7 meters below, and the bottom level is 10 to 12 meters below. Each level has its own layout and design features. A distinctive feature of the lower tier is the presence of rooms with thick walls and massive arches, which could have been used to store valuables or important documents. These chambers have only one entrance and are equipped with complex locking mechanisms. Traces on the walls indicate the existence of shelves or niches for storing various items. A mysterious element of the layout is a circular room with a diameter of about 15 meters, located in the eastern part of the complex. Its walls are decorated with stone carvings, with images that cannot yet be interpreted. The shape of the room and the nature of the decor suggest a religious purpose, but its specific function remains unclear. The water supply system includes not only drainage channels, but also supply pipes that could have provided clean water to various parts of the complex. The source of the water has not yet been identified, but engineering calculations show that the system was designed for significant consumption. This indicates that a large number of people lived in the underground chambers. The orientation of the main axes of the complex does not coincide with the modern layout of the Kremlin, which may indicate its earlier origin. The main axis runs from northeast to southwest, which corresponds to the orientation of the oldest Moscow churches. Perhaps the layout of the underground passages is related to the location of the first churches and princely buildings. The connections between the various parts of the complex were made using different architectural techniques. Some passages are designed as solemn portals with decorative elements, while others are simple openings in the walls. This difference may reflect the hierarchy of the rooms and their functional purpose. The ventilation system demonstrates a remarkable understanding of the principles of aerodynamics. The air ducts have a variable cross-section and special extensions that create draft and ensure effective air circulation. Some elements of the system are equipped with dampers that allowed the airflow to be regulated depending on weather conditions and needs. Archaeological research of the Kremlin's underground passages has revealed numerous traces of fires that occurred during various historical periods. These disasters left their mark in the form of layers of soot, charred wood, and melted metal objects. Analysis of these traces allows us not only to date the events, but also to understand their scale and consequences for the underground complex. The oldest traces of fire date back to the 12th century and are probably associated with the internecine wars of that time. Thick layers of coal and ash interspersed with pottery shards and melted bronze objects have been found in the cultural layers of this period. The temperature of the fire was so high that limestone blocks cracked and changed their structure in some places. The fires of the 13th century, associated with the Mongol invasion, were particularly destructive. Archaeological data indicate that the fire engulfed a significant part of the underground complex. In some rooms, the layer of ash is half a meter thick, and the wooden structures were completely burned down. Among the ruins, melted silver items and the remains of destroyed church utensils were found. The reconstruction of the underground chambers after the fires of the 13th century was carried out using new construction technologies. Ancient craftsmen took into account the experience of previous disasters and made changes to the design of the vaults and the ventilation system. Special fire breaks were created, areas where combustible materials were replaced with stone to prevent the spread of fire. The fires of the 14th century were less extensive but more numerous. Traces of local fires have been found in various parts of the complex, indicating their random nature. They may have been caused by careless handling of fire when lighting the underground rooms. During this period, more sophisticated smoke removal systems and special niches for the safe placement of lamps appeared. A catastrophic fire in the 15th century affected mainly the upper levels of the underground complex. Archaeological data show that the fire entered the underground chambers through ventilation shafts and quickly spread through the corridors. Remains of documents and books have been found in the cultural layers of this period, indicating that some of the rooms were used as archives or libraries. Traces of fires in the 16th and 17th centuries are less pronounced, which may be explained by improved fire safety measures and changes in the use of the underground chambers. During this period, additional safety features were added to the structure. Metal dampers in the ventilation ducts, stone barriers in the corridors, and special water tanks for extinguishing fires. The technical consequences of the fires included not only the destruction of wooden elements, but also damage to stone structures. High temperatures caused limestone blocks to crack and masonry to weaken. Ancient builders developed special repair techniques, including injecting lime mortar into cracks and replacing the most damaged elements. Analysis of the remains of burnt materials has established that significant quantities of combustible substances were stored in the underground chambers at various times. Traces of burnt wax have been found, indicating the production or storage of candles, as well as residues of resinous substances, possibly used for waterproofing or as fuel. The study of fire traces provided important information about the evacuation measures taken by the inhabitants of the underground chambers. In some rooms, the remains of valuable items were found, left behind in the hasty flight from the fire. The layout of the emergency exits was designed to ensure rapid evacuation even when the main corridors were filled with smoke. In the eastern part of the underground complex, archaeologists discovered the remains of rooms which, based on their architectural features and finds, can be identified as the remains of ancient princely residences. These chambers are a unique example of pre-Mongol residential architecture, preserved thanks to their underground location from the destructive effects of time and subsequent reconstruction. The central room of the presumed chambers measures 12 by 8 meters and has ceilings up to 5 meters high. The walls are made of carefully worked white stone and decorated with carved elements of floral ornamentation. The masonry features indicate that craftsmen familiar with Byzantine architectural traditions were involved in the construction. The quality of the workmanship significantly exceeds the usual level of residential buildings of that time. The heating system of the chambers was based on the principle of underfloor heating, similar to Roman hypocausts. A network of channels was discovered under the floor of the rooms, through which warm air circulated from the central furnace. The remains of this furnace were found in an adjacent utility room. Such a heating system was extremely rare in ancient Russian architecture and testifies to the high status of the owners. Finds in the chambers include fragments of luxurious ceramic tableware decorated with gold and silver. Among the artifacts are the remains of Byzantine amphorae for expensive wines, fragments of Venetian glass cups, and engraved silver tableware. These items indicate the refined lifestyle of the inhabitants and their extensive trade connections. Of particular interest are the remains of wall paintings preserved in several places. The fragments of frescoes are executed in the Byzantine manner and depict plant motifs and geometric ornaments. The use of expensive pigments, including ultramarine and cinnabar, confirms the assumption of the high status of the premises. The style of painting corresponds to 12th century models. In one of the rooms of the chambers, a stone baptismal font carved from a single block of marble was discovered. This is an extremely rare find for old Russian archaeology, as marble was not mined in Russia and had to be brought from Byzantium or Italy. The font is decorated with relief images of grapevines and has a drain connected to a drainage system. The layout of the chambers includes several interconnected rooms for various purposes. In addition to the main hall, there are more intimate rooms, possibly used as bedrooms, and utility rooms for servants. This division of space corresponds to the principles of the organization of princely residences of that time, and emphasizes the hierarchical structure of medieval society. The water supply system of the chambers was organized at a high technical level. Remains of lead pipes that supplied water to various rooms and stone wash basins have been found. The quality of the plumbing work indicates the involvement of specialists familiar with Byzantine or Western European technologies. Such amenities were an exceptional luxury at the time. Remains of wooden furniture, including fragments of carved tables and benches, were found in the chambers. Analysis of the wood showed the use of valuable species, including walnut and oak. Some pieces of furniture were inlaid with bone and metal, which corresponds to descriptions of princely life in written sources. The preservation of the wooden items is explained by the special microclimate of the underground chambers. The finds of personal belongings include jewelry, clothing items, and religious objects. Of particular value are gold signet rings, which may have belonged to members of the princely family. The style of these items corresponds to the traditions of ancient Russian jewelry art of the pre-Mongol period, and indicates the high status of their owners. Archaeological research has revealed the remains of ancient church buildings under the cathedral square of the Kremlin, which existed long before the construction of modern cathedrals. These findings have overturned historians' ideas about the time of the appearance of the first stone churches in Moscow and demonstrated the continuity of the Christian tradition in the Kremlin since the 11th–12th centuries. The most significant discovery was the foundations of a church dating back to the early 12th century. The remains of the church are a four-pillar structure with a cross-domed roof, characteristic of the Byzantine architectural school. The outer perimeter of the church measures 15 by 12 meters, which corresponds to the average size of parish churches of that time. The technique used to lay the foundations demonstrates the high skill of the ancient builders. The base is laid out of large limestone blocks on a lime mortar with the addition of crushed ceramics, which gave the structure special strength and water resistance. The foundations are 3 meters deep, which ensured the stability of the building on the wet soils of the river floodplain. In the altar area of the ancient temple, the remains of a throne made of a single piece of red granite were found. This stone is not found in the Moscow region and must have been brought from Karelia or Finland, which indicates the importance of the temple and the significant funds spent on its construction. Traces of consecration and ancient inscriptions in Church Slavonic have been preserved on the surface of the throne. Fragments of a mosaic floor made of multicolored smalt were a unique find. Such floors were characteristic of the main Byzantine temples and were extremely rare in Russia. The preserved sections of the mosaic depict floral ornaments and geometric patterns. Analysis of the smalt showed that it was made in Byzantine workshops and brought here ready-made. The church's heating system was based on underground channels through which warm air circulated from furnaces located in utility rooms. This solution allowed the church to maintain a comfortable temperature even in harsh winters, which was important for long services. The remains of the furnaces and chimneys have survived to this day. In the southern part of the temple, archaeologists discovered a crypt, an underground burial chamber typical of the Byzantine tradition. The crypt has a vaulted ceiling and was intended for the burial of high-ranking church hierarchs or representatives of the princely family. The remains of stone sarcophagi and fragments of tombstones with inscriptions in Church Slavonic were found in the burial chamber. Of particular interest are the remains of the iconostasis of the ancient temple. Archaeologists have discovered fragments of stone columns that served as the base for a wooden altar screen. There are also remains of tempera painting on stone, which may have been part of the iconostasis or the walls of the temple. The style of the images corresponds to the Novgorod school of icon painting of the 12th century. A holy water font carved from a single piece of white stone was found in the western part of the temple. It is 1.5 meters in diameter and about 1 meter deep. The inner surface of the bowl is covered with a waterproof compound, which ensured the preservation of holy water. Such bowls were used to consecrate water on the Feast of the Epiphany and other church celebrations. Archaeological finds in the temple include many items of church use: censers, candlesticks, crosses, and fragments of church utensils. Of particular value are the remains of liturgical books written on parchment. Although most of the text has been lost, the surviving fragments give an idea of the nature of the services and the texts used. A treasure chamber was discovered under the altar of the temple, a small room with thick walls intended for storing church valuables. The remains of gold and silver items were found there: chalices, discs, crosses, and icon frames. Many items bear traces of fire, probably associated with the Mongol invasion of the 13th century. The Kremlin's system of underground defensive structures is a unique complex of military engineering solutions designed to protect the fortress during medieval siege warfare. Archaeological research has revealed the remains of underground casemates, secret passages for sorties, and special chambers for conducting tunnel warfare, which testify to the high level of fortification art of ancient Russian architects. The main defensive tunnel runs parallel to the southern wall of the Kremlin at a depth of 5 to 6 meters and is over 300 meters long. It is 3 meters wide and 2.5 meters high, allowing armed soldiers to move freely. The walls of the tunnel are lined with massive stone blocks and equipped with niches for storing weapons and supplies. Loopholes cut into the tunnel walls every 10 to 15 meters allowed archers and crossbowmen to fire at enemies attempting to undermine the walls. The shape of the loopholes was specially designed to maximize the angle of fire while minimizing the vulnerability of the archers. Some loopholes were equipped with rotating shutters made of thick oak covered with iron. The system of countermine galleries was designed to counter enemy tunneling. These narrow passages led from the main tunnel in the direction of the enemy's presumed approach routes. The galleries housed special listening posts, where experienced warriors determined the direction and intensity of enemy tunneling by the sound of pickaxes and shovels. A distinctive feature of the defensive system is the chambers for storing combustible and explosive substances. These rooms have reinforced walls and special ventilation ducts for smoke extraction. Archaeologists have found traces of sulfur, saltpeter, and other components of gunpowder mixtures in them. Such chambers were used to destroy enemy tunnels by blowing them up. The underground arsenals are spacious rooms with vaulted ceilings designed for storing weapons and ammunition. Remains of arrows, spears, swords, and elements of siege engines have been found there. Of particular interest are the finds of early examples of firearms, arquebuses and cannonballs dating from the 14th to 15th centuries. The warning system included acoustic pipes laid from underground posts to the surface. Through these pipes, sentries could transmit alarm signals about the approach of enemies or the discovery of tunnels. Some pipes have a branched structure, allowing several posts on the surface to be alerted simultaneously. Water barriers in the underground defense system were created by diverting groundwater into special reservoirs. If necessary, these reservoirs could be opened, flooding the approaches to the fortress and enemy tunnels. The remains of sluice mechanisms and drainage channels testify to the sophistication of this system. Secret exits from the fortress were located in various parts of the defensive system and were carefully camouflaged. Some of them led to natural ravines or thickets of shrubs outside the fortress walls. These passages were intended for sudden sorties by the besieged against the enemy camp, or for communication with Allied troops. The engineering solutions used in the underground defensive structures demonstrate a deep understanding of the principles of fortification and siege warfare. Many elements of the system were ahead of their time and were only used in European fortress architecture centuries later. This testifies to the high level of military engineering in medieval Russia. The reign of the Rurik dynasty and the first Romanovs left rich archaeological evidence in the Kremlin's underground chambers. The finds from this period reflect the evolution of court culture, changes in the daily life of the Moscow sovereigns, and the development of craft production. The layers from the 15th to 17th centuries, when Moscow became the capital of the centralized Russian state, proved to be particularly informative. The royal workshops, discovered in the northwestern part of the complex, are a system of interconnected rooms designed for the manufacture of luxury items. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of a jewelry workshop with crucibles for smelting precious metals, anvils, and specialized tools. Finds of gold filings and scraps of silver wire indicate the intensive work of the craftsmen. The armory had its own underground section where samples of cold and firearms were stored and manufactured. The remains of blacksmithing equipment, including forges for hardening steel and special devices for making musket barrels, were found in these rooms. Of particular interest are the finds of decorative elements of weapons, engraved overlays, and inlaid details. The Tsar's library, the legendary library of Ivan the Terrible, may have been partially housed in underground storerooms. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of special wooden shelves and metal chains for securing books. Fragments of parchment sheets with texts in Latin and Greek have been found, as well as the remains of expensive bindings with gold embossing. The alchemical laboratory is a unique find, testifying to the interest of the Moscow sovereigns in the natural sciences. In one of the underground rooms, the remains of distillation furnaces, glass retorts, and alchemical instruments were discovered. Chemical analysis of the substances found revealed traces of sulfur, mercury, and other components used in alchemical experiments. Medical preparations and instruments found in the royal dungeons indicate the development of court medicine. Among the finds are surgical instruments of Western European manufacture, fragments of pharmacy utensils, and remains of medicinal plants. Of particular interest are the finds of Oriental spices and incense, which were used not only in cooking, but also for medicinal purposes. The royal treasury was housed in specially equipped underground vaults with a multi-level security system. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of massive iron chests, complex locks, and security mechanisms. Gold and silver coins from various periods, precious stones, and fragments of jewelry have been found in these rooms. The diplomatic archive also had an underground section for storing particularly important documents. A special climate control system included adjustable ventilation and moisture protection. Remains of wax seals, fragments of diplomatic correspondence, and special boxes for transporting secret documents were found. Court entertainment is reflected in the finds of musical instruments and game accessories. Remains of stringed instruments, including a psaltery and a lute, as well as chess pieces made of bone and wood, have been discovered. Of particular interest are the finds of theatrical masks and costume elements associated with court performances. Foreign influences in the royal household are reflected in numerous imported items. Fragments of German and Italian ceramics, Venetian glass, Persian carpets, and Chinese porcelain have been found. These finds testify to the extensive international connections of the Muscovite state and the cosmopolitan nature of court culture. The engineering and technical systems of the Kremlin's underground chambers are an outstanding example of medieval construction, combining elements of water supply, sewage, heating, and ventilation. The complexity and sophistication of these systems amaze modern experts and force them to reconsider their ideas about the technical level of ancient Russian civilization. The water supply system of the underground complex was based on the use of artesian springs discovered at a depth of 15 to 20 meters. The system included main pipes made of fired clay with a diameter of up to 30 centimeters, which supplied water to various parts of the complex. The quality of the ceramic pipes and the precision of their joints testify to the high skill of the ancient potters. The water distribution network included storage tanks, filtration chambers, and control valves. The tanks were lined with a waterproof mortar and had a capacity of up to several cubic meters. The filtration system was based on the use of sand, coal, and special clay filters, which ensured high-quality drinking water. The sewerage system consists of a network of stone collectors that carried wastewater outside the complex. The main collector has a cross-section of 1.5 meters and is lined with carefully fitted stone blocks. The system includes sedimentation tanks, where primary treatment of wastewater took place, and ventilation pipes to remove unpleasant odors. The heating system was based on the principle of central heating with hot air distributed through ducts. The central boiler rooms were located in special technical rooms and were equipped with complex chimney systems. Warm air was supplied to the living and working quarters through a network of underground ducts and wall vents. The ventilation system ensured air circulation in all rooms of the complex. Natural draft was created by the temperature difference and height difference between the inlet and outlet openings. The system included adjustable dampers that allowed airflows to be directed according to weather conditions and needs. The underground rooms were lit by a system of mirrors and reflective surfaces that directed sunlight from light wells into the depths of the complex. Polished metal mirrors and white stone surfaces enhanced the natural lighting. During the hours of darkness, oil lamps and torches were used, placed in special niches. The fire protection system included water tanks, sandboxes, and special tools for extinguishing fires. The fire alarm system was based on acoustic signals transmitted through special pipes. Fire breaks were located at critical points to prevent the spread of fire. Mechanical systems included lifting devices for transporting goods between levels, as well as various devices for opening heavy doors and moving stone slabs. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of block systems, gates, and lever mechanisms that greatly facilitated the physical labor of the inhabitants of the underground chambers. The communication system was based on the use of acoustic tubes that connected different parts of the complex. These tubes allowed messages to be transmitted over long distances and activities in different rooms to be coordinated. Some tubes had special extensions to amplify the sound. The microclimate was controlled by a complex system of temperature and humidity regulation. Special chambers with various fillers allowed optimal conditions to be maintained for storing food, documents, and other materials. This system ensured the preservation of organic materials for centuries. The system of storage rooms in the Kremlin's underground passages is a grandiose complex of storage facilities for various purposes, which ensured the functioning of the fortress in peacetime and during sieges. The total area of the storage rooms exceeds 1,000 square meters, which allowed food, weapons, building materials, and other necessary items to be stored for long periods of time. The grain stores are spacious rooms with a special climate control system that prevented the spoilage of supplies. The walls of these rooms are covered with a special water-repellent compound, and the floors are raised above ground level to protect against moisture. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of wooden bins and traces of various grain crops: wheat, rye, oats, and barley. Meat and fish storage rooms were equipped with a cooling system based on the circulation of cold air from deep underground. Special ventilation ducts brought cool air to the rooms where salted and smoked products were stored. Remains of wooden barrels for salting and stone slabs for cutting carcasses have been found. Wine cellars were located in the deepest parts of the complex, where the temperature remained constant throughout the year. The walls of the cellars are lined with a special type of stone that does not allow moisture to pass through and maintains a constant temperature. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of oak barrels of various sizes and fragments of ceramic amphorae for storing expensive wines. Arms depots occupy a significant part of the underground complex and include rooms for storing various types of weapons. Special oak racks were used to store swords, spears, and bows. Separate rooms were equipped for the storage of gunpowder and ammunition in accordance with safety measures. The remains of thousands of arrowheads and elements of protective armor have been found. Textile warehouses were used to store fabrics, clothing, and other items made of organic materials. These rooms have a special ventilation system that prevents mold and insect pests. Remains of silk and woolen fabrics, as well as fragments of expensive furs and leather goods, have been found. The treasuries are the most secure rooms with a multi-level security system. Thick stone walls, massive iron doors, and complex locking mechanisms ensured the reliable protection of valuables. Remains of gold and silver items, precious stones, and church utensils were found in these rooms. Medicine warehouses included rooms for storing medicinal herbs, minerals, and finished medical preparations. Special wooden boxes with various compartments allowed medicines to be organized systematically. Remains of exotic plants and minerals brought from distant countries for court medicine have been found. Construction warehouses contained stocks of stone, lime, metal products, and tools. Materials were organized by type and size, which ensured quick access to the necessary resources. Of particular interest are the finds of rare building materials, including marble and porphyry, which were used for especially important works. Document archives were located in rooms with a controlled microclimate, which ensured the preservation of written materials. Special wooden shelves and metal boxes protected documents from moisture and rodents. A labeling system made it possible to quickly find the necessary documents among thousands of stored scrolls and books. Technical warehouses contained spare parts for various mechanisms, tools, and equipment for repair work. Everything was organized according to function, which made it easier to find the necessary parts. Remains of complex mechanisms have been found, including parts of clockwork devices and elements of lifting machines. The network of secret passages in the Kremlin's underground is one of the most intriguing elements of the entire complex. These hidden passages allowed for unnoticed movement between different parts of the fortress and exits beyond its boundaries, which was super important during sieges and political crises. The engineering perfection of the entrance's camouflage and the complexity of the layout testify to the strategic importance of these structures. The main secret passage begins in the basement of the Archangel Cathedral and leads to the banks of the Moskva River, passing under the entire territory of the Kremlin. The total length of this tunnel is more than 500 meters, and its design includes several intermediate chambers with ventilation and lighting systems. The exit is camouflaged among the coastal rocks and is practically invisible from the surface. The mechanisms for opening the secret entrances demonstrate the ingenuity of ancient craftsmen. One of the most complex mechanisms is a rotating stone slab, which is set in motion by a system of counterweights and levers. Activating the mechanism requires simultaneous action on several hidden elements, which ensured a high level of secrecy. Side branches of the main passage lead to various strategically important objects in the Kremlin. One of these passages connects the underground passages with the Tainitskaya Tower, another with the territory of the modern Senate Palace. The third passage leads towards Red Square and may have had an exit to the shopping arcades, which provided a connection to the city. The alarm system in the secret passages was based on mechanical devices that warned of unauthorized entry. Archaeologists have found the remains of bells, tension wires, and balancing mechanisms that were triggered when someone tried to enter the tunnels. These devices were connected to guard posts on the surface. False passages and dead ends were created to mislead potential enemies who might discover the entrances to the system. These corridors were constructed with the same care as the real passages, but ended in traps or blind walls. Some false passages were equipped with mechanisms to collapse the ceiling on uninvited guests. Intermediate shelters were located every 100 to 150 meters along the main passage, and consisted of enlarged chambers with food and water supplies. These rooms allowed people to wait out danger or rest during long journeys. Remains of stored food and essential items were found in the shelters. Observation posts built into the system of secret passages provided visual control over the Kremlin and its surroundings. Periscopic devices based on a system of mirrors allowed observers to watch what was happening on the surface without being seen. These posts were connected to underground communication lines. Water barriers were artificially created in some sections of the secret passages for additional protection. Special sluices allowed individual sections of the tunnels to be flooded in case of a threat of capture. A drainage system ensured that flooded areas were quickly drained after the danger had been eliminated. Documentary evidence of the use of secret passages is extremely scarce, which is explained by their confidential nature. However, archaeological finds, including personal belongings of historical figures, confirm their active use during critical periods of Russian history. Of particular interest are finds relating to the time of troubles and the palace coups of the 18th century. The current stage of research into the Kremlin's underground passages is characterized by the use of the latest technologies and an interdisciplinary approach, which allows for the most complete picture of this unique archaeological complex to be obtained. Since 2020, research has been conducted using the most advanced equipment and methods, opening up fundamentally new opportunities for scientists. LiDAR scanning of the Kremlin territory has made it possible to create a detailed three-dimensional map of all underground voids and structures. Modern LiDAR devices are capable of penetrating the Earth to a depth of up to 20 meters and detecting objects as small as a few centimeters. The data obtained is processed using artificial intelligence, which automatically identifies anomalies and potentially interesting objects. Georadar surveys complement LiDAR data and allow the internal structure of detected objects to be studied. Modern georadars operate at different frequencies, which provides information about the materials of structures, the presence of voids, and the nature of the filling of rooms. This technology is particularly effective for studying buried passages and collapsed rooms. Remote-controlled robots are used to explore hard-to-reach and potentially dangerous areas of underground complexes. These devices are equipped with high-resolution cameras, LiDAR sensors, and sampling devices. Robots are capable of penetrating narrow passages and surveying areas where human presence is impossible or undesirable. Molecular genetic analysis of organic remains opens up new opportunities for studying the daily life of underground dwellers. Modern methods allow DNA to be extracted and analyzed from ancient samples, plant and animal species to be identified, diets to be studied, and traces of disease to be detected. This information significantly complements traditional archaeological data. Isotope analysis of artifacts and building materials helps determine their origin and date with unprecedented accuracy. Modern mass spectrometers are capable of analyzing the isotopic composition of various elements and comparing it with databases containing information about raw material deposits. This makes it possible to trace trade links and migration flows. Computer modeling and virtual reconstruction make it possible to study underground complexes in their original form. Powerful computer programs can restore destroyed parts of structures, simulate their functioning, and create interactive models for researchers and the public. Neural network technologies are used for automatic recognition and classification of artifacts. Trained neural networks are capable of analyzing images of finds and automatically determining their type, date, and cultural affiliation. This significantly speeds up the processing of archaeological material and increases the accuracy of classification. Laser cleaning of artifacts allows for the removal of dirt and layers from the surface of finds without damaging the original material. This technology is particularly effective for cleaning metal objects, ceramics, and stone sculptures. Laser cleaning reveals details that have been hidden under layers of dirt and corrosion for centuries. Digital archiving of research results creates a constantly updated database that is accessible to researchers around the world. All finds are photographed in high resolution. Three-dimensional models of the most important artifacts are created, and the results of analyses are entered into a unified information system. This ensures the preservation of scientific information and facilitates comparative research. International cooperation brings together Russian and foreign specialists in the study of this unique complex. Experts from leading archaeological centers around the world contribute their experience and knowledge, allowing the most advanced techniques to be used and world-class results to be achieved. Regular scientific conferences facilitate the exchange of experience and coordination of research. Despite decades of intensive research and the use of the most modern technologies, the Kremlin's underground chambers continue to hold many secrets that baffle even the most experienced archaeologists and historians. Some of the elements discovered cannot be explained by existing scientific theories and force us to rethink established ideas about medieval architecture and engineering. A mysterious chamber of regular spherical shape with a diameter of 8 meters remains one of the most intriguing finds. The walls of this room are made of solid blocks of an unknown material that is harder than granite, but easy to work with. The surface of the chamber is perfectly smooth, with no visible seams or tool marks. The purpose and technology behind this structure remain unclear. Acoustic anomalies in some rooms create effects that cannot be explained by the usual laws of physics. In one of the halls, a whisper uttered at a certain point is clearly audible in the opposite corner, but cannot be heard in the intermediate areas. This phenomenon cannot be explained by the simple shape of the room or the properties of the building materials. Magnetic anomalies have been recorded at several points in the underground complex, where the compass needle deviates from the normal direction by several tens of degrees. Geophysical studies have not revealed the presence of iron ores or other natural sources of magnetic fields. The origin of these anomalies remains a mystery to experts. Temperature fluctuations in one of the rooms do not correspond to seasonal changes on the surface. In this chamber, the temperature is maintained at a constant level of plus 12 degrees all year round, regardless of weather conditions. The absence of visible heat sources or special technical devices makes this phenomenon inexplicable. The incomprehensible symbols and signs carved into the stone cannot be deciphered using known writing systems. These images are found in various parts of the complex and were made with different tools, indicating that they were created at different times. Attempts to compare them with known alphabets and symbolic systems have been unsuccessful. Building blocks of unknown origin have been found at the base of several structures. These stones have an unusual crystalline structure and contain elements that do not occur in nature in such concentrations. Petrographic analysis has been unable to determine where and how these materials could have been obtained. Mechanical devices of complex design were found in several rooms in disassembled form. Reconstruction of their original appearance and functions proved impossible due to the lack of analogs in known mechanical systems of the Middle Ages. The level of complexity of these devices significantly exceeds the technical capabilities of that time. Biological anomalies include the discovery of plant seeds that did not grow in Eastern Europe in historical times. Genetic analysis showed that these plants must have originated from significantly warmer climatic zones. How they ended up in the Kremlin's underground chambers remains unclear. Radioactive traces have been found in several soil samples from deep layers, where the radiation level exceeds the natural background. The source of this radioactivity has not been identified, as there are no uranium deposits in the Moscow region. The age of the radioactive inclusions is estimated to be many centuries. Gravitational anomalies have been recorded using high-precision gravimeters in the central part of the complex. In this area, the acceleration of free fall differs from the normal value by several tenths of a percent. Geological studies have not revealed any underground voids or dense rocks that could explain this phenomenon. Energy fields of unknown nature are recorded by sensitive instruments in some rooms. These fields do not belong to known types of electromagnetic radiation and have no visible sources. Their intensity varies according to an incomprehensible pattern and does not correlate with external factors. The scientific community offers many theories and hypotheses explaining the origin, purpose, and features of the Kremlin's underground complex. The variety of versions reflects the complexity and multifaceted nature of the discovered objects, as well as the lack of documentary sources that could shed light on the history of these structures' creation. Each theory has its strengths and weaknesses. The ancient sanctuary version is put forward by a group of researchers led by Professor Igor Vladimirovich Danilov. According to this theory, the central part of the complex was originally a pagan temple built by Slavic tribes before the adoption of Christianity. The round rooms and unusual acoustic properties could have been used for religious ceremonies and mysteries. The Byzantine heritage hypothesis is supported by archaeologist Maria Alexeyevna Polyanskaya and is based on an analysis of construction techniques and architectural solutions. The researcher believes that the complex was created by Byzantine craftsmen in the 11th to 12th centuries at the request of Russian princes. This would explain the high technical level of the structures and the use of advanced engineering solutions. The theory of an underground city was developed by historian Alexei Petrovich Sedmov, who believes that the discovered structures are the remains of an extensive underground settlement. In his opinion, this refuge was created to shelter the population during enemy raids and could exist autonomously for a long time thanks to food and water supplies. The version about the Tsar's residence suggests that the complex served as a secret residence for Moscow rulers during critical periods of history. Supporters of this theory point to the luxurious decoration of some rooms and the presence of complex security systems. The underground residence could have been used during epidemics, popular unrest, or external threats. A scientific and technical hypothesis has been put forward by physicist Sergei Vorontsov, who suggests that part of the complex could have served as an ancient observatory or laboratory. The unusual acoustic and magnetic properties of some of the rooms, in his opinion, could have been used for astronomical observations or primitive physical experiments. The alchemical version links the creation of the complex to the activities of alchemists who were looking for ways to transmute metals and create the philosopher's stone. Supporters of this theory point to the discovery of special equipment and chemicals. The underground location of the laboratories ensured the secrecy of the research and protection from persecution. The defensive concept considers the entire complex to be part of the Kremlin's fortification system. According to this version, the underground structures were created to conduct underground warfare, house a garrison during a siege, and provide secret communications between different parts of the fortress. The military purpose explains the scale of the construction and its technical complexity. The trade hypothesis suggests that the underground chambers were used for storing and trading valuable goods. Their convenient location near river ports and reliable protection from fire and looting made the underground chambers ideal warehouses for expensive goods. International trade required large storage areas and reliable security. The religious mystical version links the complex to the activities of secret Christian communities or sects. The hidden location of the premises and their special layout could have been used for religious services inaccessible to the official church. Some symbols and images are interpreted as elements of esoteric teachings. A combined theory brings together elements of various hypotheses and suggests that the complex was created in stages for different purposes. In different historical periods, the same premises could have been used as shrines, warehouses, workshops, or shelters. This version best explains the diversity of architectural solutions and finds from different periods. A futuristic hypothesis put forward by some researchers suggests that some of the technologies and knowledge used in the construction of the complex were significantly ahead of their time. Perhaps the ancient craftsmen possessed knowledge that was lost in subsequent centuries and only recently rediscovered by modern science. Preserving the unique archaeological complex of the Kremlin's underground passages is a complex task that requires the use of the most modern conservation and restoration technologies. The Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, together with the Ministry of Culture, has developed a comprehensive program for the protection and study of the underground heritage, which is designed for the long term and provides for the gradual expansion of access to unique objects for the scientific community. Climate control in the underground chambers is carried out using automated systems that maintain optimal temperature and humidity conditions for the preservation of archaeological objects. Special sensors monitor the microclimate in each room separately, taking into account the characteristics of the materials stored there. The air conditioning system operates on principles that do not violate the historical authenticity of the structures. The structural stabilization of ancient structures is carried out using innovative materials that ensure strength without compromising the historical appearance of the buildings. Injections of special compounds reinforce the masonry, and modern anchoring systems prevent further destruction of the arches and walls. All work is carried out under the supervision of highly qualified restorers. The condition of the objects is monitored around the clock using a network of sensors that record the slightest changes in the structures. An early warning system allows potential threats to be identified in a timely manner and preventive measures to be taken. The monitoring data is analyzed by specialists and used to plan conservation work. All changes in work are documented electronically, and a detailed database is created. Each intervention in the historical structure is recorded using photo and video photography, and three-dimensional models are created before and after the work. Such documentation makes it possible to analyze the effectiveness of conservation measures and adjust them. International cooperation in the field of heritage protection includes the exchange of experience with leading restoration centers around the world. Experts from UNESCO, the Italian Institute for the Protection of Monuments, and other organizations advise their Russian colleagues on the application of the latest conservation technologies. Regular internships help maintain the high level of qualification of restorers. Scientific research is conducted in strict accordance with the principles of non-destructive analysis. Modern methods allow for obtaining maximum information about objects without causing damage. All samples are taken in minimal quantities and only when absolutely necessary for dating or determining the composition of materials. Public access to research results is provided through virtual tours and interactive exhibitions. Museum specialists develop educational programs that allow the general public to learn about unique finds without exposing them to the risk of damage from mass visits. Staff training for work in the underground complex is carried out in specialized training centers. Training programs include the study of history, archaeology, restoration, and modern conservation technologies. Students undergo practical training under the guidance of experienced specialists and acquire unique skills in working with archaeological sites. The Heritage Protection Program is financed from the federal budget and supplemented by international funds. A special endowment fund has been created, the proceeds of which are used for the long-term maintenance and study of the complex. Private investment is attracted on the condition of strict compliance with monument protection requirements. The complex is protected by special legislation that establishes a special protection regime for the territory and regulates access to the sites. A special service has been set up to monitor compliance with safety requirements and prevent unauthorized entry into the underground passages. Violation of the protection regime entails serious administrative and criminal liability. Prospects for further research into the Kremlin's underground passages open up exciting opportunities for new archaeological discoveries and scientific breakthroughs. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have shown that the part of the complex studied to date accounts for only a third of the total volume of underground structures. Plans for future expeditions include the gradual expansion of the research area using the most advanced technologies. Robotic archaeology will become the main tool for future research. A new generation of archaeological robots equipped with artificial intelligence will be able to autonomously explore hard-to-reach areas of the underground passages, carry out initial classification of finds, and create detailed maps of unexplored rooms. These devices will operate in conditions that are dangerous for humans and ensure the safety of the research process. Quantum technologies will open up new possibilities for dating artifacts and analyzing their composition. Quantum sensors will allow objects to be dated to within a few years, while quantum spectroscopy will provide information about the molecular structure of materials at a level unattainable by modern methods. These technologies will help solve many mysteries surrounding the origin and purpose of the structures discovered. The bioarchaeology of the future will use ancient DNA analysis methods to reconstruct the genetic portrait of the population of medieval Moscow. New sequencing technologies will make it possible to extract genetic information even from severely degraded samples and restore kinship ties between different population groups. This will help us understand the migration processes and cultural contacts of antiquity. Virtual reality will create opportunities for complete immersion in the atmosphere of medieval dungeons. Visitors will be able to virtually travel through ancient corridors, observe the work of medieval craftsmen, and participate in historical events. Augmented reality technologies will allow visitors to combine the study of real artifacts with their historical context. Interdisciplinary research will bring together archaeologists, historians, physicists, chemists, biologists, and representatives of other sciences. The creation of interdisciplinary research groups will enable a comprehensive approach to the study of the complex and yield results that would be impossible to obtain using the methods of individual sciences. This is particularly important for solving mysteries that cannot be explained within the framework of traditional archaeology. Space technologies will find application in archaeological research. High-resolution satellite imaging will help reveal hidden structures over a large area around the Kremlin, and technologies developed for exploring other planets will be adapted for studying underground voids. Remote sensing methods will make it possible to create a three-dimensional map of the entire underground system. artificial intelligence will revolutionize the process of analyzing archaeological data. Neural networks will be able to process huge amounts of information, identify hidden patterns, and predict the location of new finds. Machine learning will help automatically classify artifacts, determine their cultural affiliation, and restore historical connections. Nanotechnology will open up new possibilities for the conservation and restoration of archaeological sites. Nanomaterials will protect ancient structures from destruction without altering their appearance or historical authenticity. Nanosensors will make it possible to monitor the condition of objects at the molecular level and prevent their degradation. International cooperation in the field of archaeological research will create a global network of scientific collaboration. The exchange of data, methodologies, and specialists will accelerate the process of studying the complex and improve the quality of research. The creation of international standards for archaeological research will ensure the comparability of results and the possibility of their verification. Future educational programs will include the study of the Kremlin's underground complex as a unique example of medieval architecture and engineering. Virtual laboratories will allow students from different countries to participate in research without leaving their educational institutions. This will contribute to the formation of a new generation of specialists capable of solving complex interdisciplinary problems. Commercializing research results through the creation of educational and entertainment products will provide additional funding for scientific work. Documentary films, interactive games, virtual tours, and popular science publications will not only recoup research costs, but also draw public attention to the importance of preserving cultural heritage.